Hey everyone, Michelle here, personal trainer and lifestyle coach. I'm so excited for you to join us today on our video podcast. Today we are joined by Casey Davis. He is the owner of Red Vision Fitness in Sherwood, Oregon, and we are super excited to have him here today. Casey has his ISSA certification. He has been a trainer for about 6 years and has been competitively bodybuilding since about 2017. Thank you so much for joining us today, Casey.
Thank you. That was a good intro.
Thanks. All right, so let's hop right into it. Let's hear a little bit about your story. How did you get where you are today, and what kind of inspired you to become a trainer?
Yeah. So I guess to start, it's more so like how I got into fitness, which kind of evolved into how I got into training, which evolved into how I got into, having this gym. So when I graduated high school, I wanted to go into the Coast Guard and I was getting ready for that. I was working out, swimming, running, stuff like that. And I went in and I talked with a recruiter and they were super strict on just a bunch of different things like my height to weight ratio. Like I didn't weigh enough basically to meet their criteria, and I was like, what? Like, so I started working out more, like started lifting weights more. Had a really hard time putting weight on because I didn't know really anything about nutrition. Ended up deciding to go to school. And at the time, I was working part time. And I was talking with one of my coworkers, and they told me about this website, bodybuilding.com. And I went on there and I did like this 12-week cookie cutter program, but they had like the actual like nutrition breakdown. So I started doing that. I ended up putting like 22 pounds on in 12 weeks.
Wow.
And so just through that, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like you see your body transform like that. It's super exciting. So started working out more while I was going to school. Never really had any like intentions of competing in bodybuilding. It was just something that I enjoyed doing, something that I wanted to do to just help build more confidence. And I had there was a IFBB Pro men's physique competitor that worked out at that gym, and he approached me one time while I was working out. And he asked me if I was prepping for a show. And I told him no, that I was just working out for fun. And he's like, "You should do it. I think you do really well." And I was like, I don't know if that's for me." And he kept bugging me about it. I'd see him and he'd talk to me about it. And so eventually, I was like, you know what? Let's give it a try. So I did my first show back in 2017, and you know, instantly loved it. Like just going out on that stage and being able to be competitive and compete against other people was pretty cool. And then a lot of my friends saw the transformation that I was going through. So they wanted to like work out with me and things like that. So I started training some of my friends, like they would just work out with me. And then that's where I kind of found like my passion for just like helping other people. Like I always knew I wanted to do something with athletics. Like in high school, I wanted to be an athletic trainer. At one point, I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I always knew I wanted to do something that was like within athletics, but you're also helping people. So that's kind of what sparked the whole like getting into personal training. And so I went and got my ISSA certification back in 2015. Um, and I wasn't like super confident. Like I didn't think that I would do well at it. So I kept pushing it off. Like I was really comfortable where I was at. I was doing construction jobs, hated it. I eventually got to a point where it's like, okay, like I'm not happy with where I'm at. So let's just go for it. So I ended up quitting that job, ended up working at Boom where I met Michelle.
Yay.
And yeah. And that was something that was definitely like out of my comfort zone because I knew, as a new trainer, it's not like you just show up and you get all these clients. Like you have to, you know, meet people, talk to people, you have to get those clients yourself. You're not, promised to have like a lot of hours at work or whatever. So that was kind of scary going from a place where, you're making good money to like not knowing how much you're going to make and if you're going to be able to pay your bills and stuff like that. But um I'm super glad that I made that choice because just personal training for me has just been such a huge blessing in my life. It's something that I'm super passionate about and really enjoy. And who knows, if I never took that jump, if I would still be doing, construction or whatever it may be. Um, so yeah, so started working at Boom. And then just started trying to get new clients, calling people that had never done PT before, trying to do like, consults with them, things like that. Started getting clients. And then I took over the HIT program at Boom. And that was super cool, going from, only having a few people in class to, at one point having like 12 people in there, which for the size of that room, probably not much bigger than the room you're in. It was pretty cool to see. And then if we fast forward a couple of years later, Boom closed. That was super sad. But again, kind of like a blessing in disguise, because, if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at with this business right now, and just having my own gym, which is, for a long time been a goal of mine and like a dream. And so it's just been super cool to kind of see like this place come into fruition and like evolve and grow. And yeah, that's where we're at.
Awesome. And I am so excited about you and your gym. I've always been supportive of that. And we've had those conversations when we were at Boom that was something
Mm,
that you might want to do. So the fact that you're like going out and doing it is awesome. So
yeah.
for people who are interested in either training or maybe setting up their own gym or business or something like that, what are some of the kind of perks of doing that? And then what are some of the struggles that you've gone through so far in setting up a new business?
Yeah. So perks, I think obviously, you're your own boss, you make your schedule. I have been able to design this place the way I wanted. So like picking the equipment that I wanted, things that I wish we had at Boom that we never had, like things like that. Um, and obviously like you make, if versus like working at a commercial gym, like you're making all the money, right? Versus just a percentage of it. Um, Cons, I would say, I don't know, like I aspects that I miss about Boom is like having that community. So like having other trainers there, like, right now I'm the only trainer. I'm trying to get more independent trainers in here to start training their clients. But I think that's like definitely one aspect that I miss, is just kind of having like that team and that community. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay. And what do you think has been the most rewarding and then the most challenging thing about setting up your gym?
The most rewarding has just been like I said earlier, just seeing the growth. Like looking at pictures from, when we first moved in here and I had like 6 pieces of equipment to like how it looks now. It's like a total 360, or 180, I should say, in regards to just like how the gym looks. So I'm super happy with just how it's turned out, and, like I said, the overall growth. I guess the most difficult things, I don't know, it's a good question. Um, I don't know.
All positives.
You froze. You
Oh,
froze there for a second. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not. Yeah, it's just like it's. I don't really think about like the hard aspects. I guess like you don't have that marketing team, so like you have to wear a lot more hats. I guess
okay.
that's the difficult part, is you are now responsible for a lot more things versus just doing the personal training aspect of it.
Okay, absolutely. Now, obviously, you started your business. I kind of started my own business as well amidst COVID, right?
Hmm.
So, how did you? I guess a lot of people are nervous about starting businesses in a time where the economy might be down. How did you feel confident enough, and what kind of steps did you have to take in order to ensure the success of your business while building it in an economic deficit?
Yeah, so I that's a funny question, because I feel like, or I know that a lot of people struggle during that time, where for me it was the opposite. I kind of thrived because, a lot of gyms here in Oregon were closed, where I'm literally inside of like a big storage unit. So I didn't have to worry about, you know, people coming in and like closing down the gym. Like I was just kind of able to do my thing. And it's not like I had a ton of people here. It was just, me and my clients one on one. So I didn't have to worry about that as much. So it was kind of like the opposite for me.
Nice. That's a really great business model. Now, I know that you had talked about having some other trainers come in with their clients and stuff too, but my understanding is that your gym currently, and maybe not as planning, is not planning to be like a membership type gym. Is that correct?
Not right now. I really, really enjoy just kind of having like the smaller community. I do have some members here, but I keep it, a smaller amount. I don't want a ton of people in here because the space is only 2,500 square feet. Um, Eventually down the road, that's something that I would like to do. Um, but for now, just, early on in the stages, I'm just enjoying the process and enjoying just having like this kind of cool, like industrial little tiny gym. Um, but eventually I would definitely like to get to that point because I feel like, especially in the area that we're in, like we have some powerlifting, bodybuilding niche gyms in Oregon, but in this area, we don't really have that. It's mostly just corporate gyms. So I think that would be something that would be really cool to have in this area.
Cool. So, would you consider your gym in particular a bodybuilding niche gym?
Yeah, just based off of the equipment. I mean, I have, anything that you would need for any goal. Um, but yeah, for sure, I would consider just like the equipment I have and the vibes, competitors or power lifters, like fat loss clients, people that just want to be healthy.
Okay.
So
Your audio
any
is
goal,
breaking
but
up
yeah, I would definitely
just a
consider it
teeny
to be
bit.
how I've always envisioned it. Okay. Can
I don't know if there's any.
you hear me okay now?
Uh, Almost. So I caught the part where you said that you have the equipment for bodybuilding, powerlifting, basically body recomp.
Yeah, so I mean I have, all the tools needed for whatever goals people have. And like I said, most of my clientele is like fat loss clients. So I can really cater to anyone, but I've always envisioned, my gym being like a bodybuilding gym just because that's what I enjoy doing and that's what I'm into.
Okay. Awesome. So when we talk a little bit more about, coaching bodybuilding, what are some key
Yeah.
elements that you feel are important for your clients to know about in order for them to, maybe let's say a new person getting into bodybuilding? What are some important things you think that they should know?
Well, I think that for one, there definitely needs to be kind of like a transition period. So like when someone first comes to me, if they're like, hey, I want to compete, well, it's like, okay, how serious is the person about competing? Where are they at? Genetics comes into play too. So usually I tell people, spend a little bit of time putting size on, um, kind of getting into the routine of just being consistent because bodybuilding requires a huge amount of adherence and dedication, especially if you want to do really, really well. So I think that's the first thing is just like setting the expectations and helping them realize, what it's going to take to, have success on stage. Um, and then I don't know. Here, repeat. Will you repeat it again? The
Yeah. So
question.
if somebody was wanting to get into bodybuilding, what types of information do you
Mhm.
think that they should have before they get into bodybuilding?
So and then on top of what I just said, just how to properly diet, how to train. You're going to be training differently versus like a powerlifter, right? Like where strength is the number one goal with bodybuilding, you're trying to build muscle and transform your body. So you need to know how that training is going to differ and then just what you need to do to support that with your nutrition, supplementation, things like that.
Okay. And you mentioned genetics being a piece of bodybuilding. Do you think anyone and everyone could be a bodybuilder? Do you think there are specific types of people who are bound to be more successful at it?
Do I think anyone can be a bodybuilder? Yes. Do I think anyone should? No.
Okay.
So like, genetics is huge when it comes to bodybuilding, and especially certain divisions, because there's a bunch of different divisions in bodybuilding. So it's not just all like big bodybuilders, but you've got, men's physique, classic physique, all those things. So I think some people would fit into certain categories better, like whereas if an individual was really passionate about bodybuilding and they worked really hard, they could probably find success within certain divisions. But there's some divisions where you just have to be kind of a genetic freak, like wide shoulders, super small waist, like things like that, where you can't really control that, like you can't change your structure, right?
Mhm. Okay. So when it comes to bodybuilding, let's talk a little bit about the positives and the negatives. What are some good things that you feel like bodybuilding does for people?
Um, well, I can speak from kind of like, I don't want to say a purpose, but just like something that was outside of the personal training. I mean, that's what led me to it about. It gave me a lot of confidence. I was always like the smallest kid on the football team growing up. Um, my friends would like pick on me because I was like the shortest and just the lightest. Uh, so it helped me gain a lot of confidence. And then I've always been super competitive, but when I played sports, I was athletic, but like I said, that being the smallest kid, bigger than you, and dominate them, right? It's kind of the other way around. Whereas when I started getting into bodybuilding and started putting size on, I started seeing a lot of success. And you don't necessarily have to be the biggest person on stage to do well. There's a lot of components that come into play. How does the person structure look, which comes down to genetics? How proportionate are they? How symmetrical are they? How conditioned are they? Things like that. So it's not always, the biggest guy wins. It's just the most complete person, I guess. So those are some pros. Some cons, it's funny because something I've been really interested in is like the psychology of bodybuilding.
Mhm.
And we see this a lot with individuals who compete. Um, is usually like having eating disorders or body dysmorphia, post contest binge eating, things like that, or just being so like laser focused on hitting their macros perfectly, where they're not allowing themselves to go out and enjoy life, like have dinner with friends or with their significant other and things like that. So that's something that I would say would be a con in bodybuilding, and something that you see pretty commonly. um and then also like there's the health aspect of it too, where regardless of if someone's a natural athlete or an enhanced athlete, like competing super hard on your body, you're literally pushing yourself like just super extreme, low body fat levels, where you're basically fighting homeostasis, right? And there's a lot of different processes that are going on in your body where it's hard on your body. And that's why I only do it every year and a half. It's crazy to me that people will compete multiple times every single year. I think it's super important that we give our bodies a break and are able to recover. But those individuals you see that do that typically don't last very long. They're there for a little bit and then they just kind of disappear.
Okay. So, kind of based off of some of those cons, you mentioned, train or not training, but competing less often, doing every year and a half or so. What are some other adaptations that you might be able to make in order to maintain some type of healthy balance, both psychologically and physically, and still be able to compete?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think allowing yourself to have some flexibility. So I'm not a huge fan of, if it fits your macros. Like I do that to an extent, but a lot of people will take that and they'll try to fit like a bunch of crappy food into their diet, where it's kind of like you're missing the point. You know, I like the 90-10 rule, where it's like 90% of the foods that you're eating throughout the week are like you're on plan, like good healthy meals, nourishing your body with good foods. You're not going to feel like crap. And then the other 10% is, 1 or 2 meals where you go out with that significant other or with your friends and you just enjoy some food. I think that's important, just having that balance in your life where you're able to just go and enjoy time. Now, granted, it's going to be different when you're competing and, you're getting closer and closer to that show. You're going to have to be more strict. That's just part of the deal. But for the other part, your off season or even earlier in prep, like I think you should be able to still go and enjoy yourself.
Okay, awesome. And what about
Yeah.
the psychological aspect? Because that's a little bit more about trying to maintain some balance in terms of food and stuff like that. When you come to being laser focused, right? That's always a hard
hmm
one for people. If you're in it, you're in it. How do you maintain balance there?
Um, I think that one's more difficult. Um, I think a lot of it depends on just the overall person, like their mentality and just like how mentally strong they are, because a lot of people will like be in the best shape of their life, but they'll look at themselves and be like, oh, I look like, crap. Where it's like in reality, like they look better than 95% of the population. And that's just something where I think, having positive self-talk, or just having, a good support system, people close to you, is important. But that one's hard. Like I've dealt with that too. And I just kind of have to remind myself, like, I'm a few weeks out from my show. I'm like, oh, I look so fat. Like when in reality, like it was super lean. It's just, maybe that day I was a little more flat because my carbs were lower. So, I didn't look as lean, although I'm still in like really good shape. So it's just one of those things where like I don't have like a good answer outside of just like try to be more positive and have like more self-talk, like positive self-talk, and just know that with what you're doing, you're going to go through those. Like I said, when you get super lean, there's a lot of things going on and it can affect like neurotransmitters and things like that, dopamine. So it's pretty normal to go through those things, but just try to understand that it's part of the process and just be positive.
Definitely. Now, do you carry some of the concepts that you use for your bodybuilders into your general population clients as well?
um kind of, not to the same extent. So when it comes to like competitor clients with their training, what I have most people do is progressive overload. So for those that don't know what progressive overload is, it's just, it says it right there, progressively overloading over a period of time. So for like example, let's say you're doing a movement. Let's say you bench press, and let's say, Michelle, you did 135 pounds for 5 reps. The next week, I'm gonna
Wow.
try to stay at that. Yeah, I'm gonna stay at that weight, but I'm gonna try to increase the reps. So let's say you get 6 reps or 7 reps, and then the next week you try to get 8 or 9 reps. Well, everyone has a set rep range that I give them. So typically I like to keep volume lower and I like to keep intensity high. So we take reps close to failure or to failure, depending on what the movement is and just the safety aspect of it. But like, let's say I have a set at 6 to 12, and then I have a set of like 12 to 16. So you got that 135 for 5. Well, once you eventually get to the point where you take that 135 and you get that top into the range, 12 reps, then you would increase the weight. And you just do that for all your movements. So I have my clients track, they've got a logbook or a notebook where they're tracking down their numbers each week. And I think it's good too, like having that biofeedback, because if you start to see that your numbers are slipping, like let's say you're going down, that's a telltale sign that your fatigue is super high, and to manage that a little bit better. So maybe doing like a deload week where you're just pulling back on the volume and the intensity a little bit. Things like that, I think are good, good information to have. So I do that with a lot of my clients. Granted, it's not, like I said, it's not to the same extent. So when people come in here, I want them to enjoy what they're doing. And if every time they come in here, we just do the same thing, people are going to get bored, right? So typically what I'll do is, like, let's say if I have a client that I'm training twice a week and we've got an upper day and a lower day, well, we'll pick 2 compound movements that we're going to keep consistent and try to progress. And then our accessory work, we'll do different stuff each time, usually circuit style.
Okay.
So that's I guess kind of the components I would take away with the training aspect is just having some kind of progressive overload in there. With the nutrition, I think it's just mostly calories in versus calories out. Granted, like, there is the aspect of like your hormones and things like that that comes into play. But just teaching people like, if you're eating more than you're expending, you're probably going to put weight on. If you're eating less than you're expending, you're probably going to lose weight. So just, teaching them that, and then just, picking foods that they enjoy. And that's what I do for my bodybuilders too, is just like pick foods you like. Like obviously I'm not going to plan, like pizza and Twinkies and ice cream into your program, but like if you prefer certain protein sources over others, I'm not going to make you eat the things you don't like. Or if you prefer certain carb sources over others, I'm not going to make you eat those.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So when it comes to what I'm kind of hearing a little bit, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is when it comes to bodybuilders, it's more about consistency. And when it comes to gen population, that's still a factor, but maybe a little bit more variety is
Mhm.
necessary for that.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Why do you think
Um,
that is?
Well, so with the bodybuilding, I like to try to keep variables as consistent as possible, and this person is working towards a very specific goal where it's, I want to show up on stage and be the best that day, the best guy or the best girl on that stage. You want to, look the best that you can. So I think everything needs to be super accurate and precise. So rather than always changing things up, I want to have those consistent variables so that I know if, for example, like I said earlier, if fatigue starts to kick in really high and we start to see, numbers going down on our logbook, doing things like pulling back on the volume, or if you're always eating different things and like let's say your stomach gets upset, okay, well, if we're always eating different things, it's going to make it more difficult to pinpoint, what foods are upsetting your stomach and things like that. Whereas like with lifestyle, like if a person were to do that and they didn't have the goal of stepping on stage, it would be a lot easier for them to get burnt out.
Mm,
And again, with those individuals, you expect adherence from them, but it's probably not going to be to the same extent as a bodybuilder, right? Like they need to have that flexibility. They need to be able to enjoy it. If they don't enjoy it, they're not going to want to come back. They're not going to want to train. They're going to dread it. And obviously, that's not going to be fun for the client or the trainer. So I think that's important. It's just that's why having that variety is important for lifestyle clients.
okay. Now, when you say lifestyle clients, do these clients typically also have goals, or are they just trying to maintain and be able to move well?
Yeah. Well, that's something that we always talk about when I first meet clients is talking about, what their goals are. If someone came to me and they didn't have a goal, I would try to make them come up with a goal because we need to kind of have like not an endpoint, but something to work towards. So um, a lot of my clientele is fat loss clients, so just people that want to lose weight. I have some clients that are just wanting to body recomp, so build muscle, lose weight, and then I have a lot of clients who are just coming to me because they want to just be healthier. Whether they've had things where like blood pressure and other biomarkers were elevated, and they knew that were missing exercise, and they just need to work out, but they didn't know what to do. Things like that. I've got clients who have physical ailments. So obviously I'm not a physical therapist, but I can apply certain exercises that can help correct some of those issues and things like that. But yeah, I mean, everyone that comes to me is gonna have a goal, even if they didn't originally have a goal, right?
Okay. So, how do you prompt that for people that maybe come in with just a very generalized idea of what they want to do and they don't have a specific goal? How do you encourage them to create one?
Um, Honestly, I mean, it's just helping them realize where they're lacking. So like, when we're going through different movements, and just seeing where their weaknesses are, they're like, oh, I didn't realize, how bad I was at doing this, or like how difficult this would be for me. So a lot of times, maybe they had the goal of losing losing body fat, but then they come in and they're like, okay, well, I want to work on these things as well because I'm lacking in these areas. And when we start working on those things, a lot of times, they just start feeling better in general. Granted, like we haven't reached that fat loss goal yet, but they are just feeling better. Their body feels better. And then that in itself is going to improve quality of life, right? If you're not waking up every morning and you feel like, every joint in your body is popping, you just feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about fat loss and body recomp, because obviously that is something that you have to deal with specifically for bodybuilders, but also clients that are wanting to come in and lose fat. So what are some key points to somebody who might want to do either a little bit of fat loss or a little bit of body recomp or both?
Keeping energy expenditure up for sure. So, if someone works a desk job, um, I like recommending to them that they have like a Apple Watch or something like that where they can track steps and try to do like intermittent walks throughout the day, even if it's only for like 5 or 10 minutes. Just get up and be active, move around. Obviously, like if someone has a job where they're walking around all day, that's not as much of a priority because they're already walking around a lot. But for someone that's like pretty sedentary, like they sit a lot, I would definitely recommend steps. Just being consistent. Don't work out just the 1 or 2 days a week that you see me. Actually go, work out on your own an additional 1 to 2 times a week, depending on what the goal is. And then just, if a person with their nutrition, if they go from eating the standard American diet, SAD diet, right? If they go from eating like things like refined carbs and sugars, things like that, just slowly trying to take one thing out at a time and replace it with better foods, I think is a big one as well. Those are just a couple of things. Water intake's big. Sleep, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and don't realize how important that is. It's funny because people come to trainers and they'll be like, hey, I have this goal. I want to lose, 50 pounds. I want to work out once a week. I want to eat, the foods that I enjoy eating. And I probably am only getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep. Can you fix me? And it's like, no.
There's a few steps.
Yeah. So I think, just creating that where you're like slowly working on these different aspects, you know, try not to overwhelm the person right off the bat and tell them that they need to do all these things, but rather take those steps. And when they take those steps, if they're consistent with it, they'll start to see progress and they'll start to buy in more and more, into the everything that you're doing.
Definitely. So, if you have a client, and you mentioned several things that people should and have to do more consistently on their own. So, when you have
Mhm.
clients that maybe struggle with adherence, or a lot of clients call it motivation, right? Which we know motivation is fleeing. So, if they
Mhm.
struggle with that, how do you help them with their adherence and their accountability?
Sorry, repeat that one more time. You cut out there at the end.
No problem. So, for your clients, how do you help them with their adherence and their accountability if they're having a hard time, conforming to these new habits that they're trying to establish?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I'll sit down, I'll check in on people. So I try to help people stay accountable by just asking them when I see them, be like, hey, how's nutrition going? Or if there's other things that we're working on, like let's say they're trying to work on just having a better sleep schedule, routine before they go to bed, asking them how that's going. Whether it's going well or not, it's only so much that as a trainer you can do. Like you can't make the person go to bed at, the time that they should be going to bed. You can't make the person, you know, eat the foods that they should be eating, or making sure that they're eating enough meals. You see that pretty commonly too. Like clients all come in and they'll be like, yeah, I eat once a day. It's like, what? So, it's, you can only do so much. But I think just being an accountability partner to the individual, just checking in on them. People don't want to disappoint other people. So I feel like if you're consistent with asking them those things, there's they're a lot more likely to be consistent. Hopefully they're not lying to you and they're being honest. But yeah, I think just the accountability is super important.
Okay. So, speaking of accountability, obviously, you as a trainer can also only do so much. You're only going to see them so often. You have several other clients you have to check in with. So, what types of things do you encourage maybe your clients to do to help them be accountable outside of your own interactions?
So I'll program workouts for clients. Um, so that they have something that they can follow. A lot of people just want something that they can follow. They don't want to have to think on their own, or maybe they just don't know what to do. So if you're programming for clients, they have something that they can follow, that they can adhere to. Writing out, like if they're a nutrition client, they know I don't typically do macros. Typically, I'll do like set meal plans. So I'll take a lot of information that we do in our consult, um, figure out what the goal is. So if they're trying to lose weight, figure out how many calories we need to be eating to accomplish those goals, and then within that, taking foods that they enjoy, plug it in, and having them just follow a meal plan. The downside to that is like sometimes people, like not everyone's going to be consistent, like, or want to eat the same thing every day, right?
Mhm.
So that's where like macros would come into play. Or just what I'll do is I'll tell the individual, if you're getting tired of eating certain foods, just let me know and we can sub it out. But just, having those things that they can follow, I think is super important and just helps them kind of stick with the plan. And then, like you said, we can only do so much. So just helping them realize that, there's only 168 hours in the week. If I see you for 2 of those hours, that other 166 hours is on you. How bad do you want to accomplish these goals? If it's not that important to you, okay, you kind of just do whatever, but you're just going to be kind of spinning around, staying in the same spot. So if you really want to see a change, you need to put work in.
Okay, definitely. Now, we did talk about motivation briefly, but I kind of want to turn that into a little bit more purpose and why. So, first, let's talk about how we help other people find their why and their purpose, and then I'd love to hear yours.
Um, hmm. I think just with exercise, like, so like, do you mean like their purpose, like their, like just what they're trying to accomplish within the, like, their fitness and things like that, or just like their purpose in life?
Maybe both. Not to make it
Um,
too general of a question.
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. A lot of, like I said earlier, when you're working with people, sometimes they don't realize the things that they want to work on and improve, and then through what you're doing, they realize that. So I mean, I've had clients where they never had any, aspirations to compete in powerlifting, but here we are, 4 months out from him doing his first powerlifting meet. So that's pretty exciting. Like, it's kind of like similar to me, where it's like I never had aspirations of bodybuilding. Someone kind of talked to me about it, convinced me to do it, and I did it, and it ended up becoming a big part of my life. So I think definitely, like, you can find purpose in life through fitness and health. That's definitely something that is, something you can do. Um, so I think it just kind of comes down. It's not going to be like that with every single person, I don't think. Not everyone wants to be a power lifter or a bodybuilder. But I think most people realize pretty quick, kind of like, if they have certain goals, what their purpose is, maybe they just want to be around longer for, their families, their grandkids, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, my purpose in life, I feel like, is just helping others through what I'm passionate about and enjoy, which is, health and fitness. And that's something that in the bodybuilding community, it's starting to become more popular, where you're seeing these coaches that are more health conscious, and some of these things that coaches used to do are going away, which is good, and for the better. I think that longevity in the sport and just, being healthy after competing is super important, whether the athlete's natural or enhanced. So yeah, I think just, being an advocate for people, helping them reach their goals in a safe and healthy manner is kind of what my purpose is.
Awesome. So, why do you think that that evolution has happened? Why do you think that some of the coaches are a little bit more health conscious rather than just performance focused?
Yeah. So you're starting to see more evidence-based coaches, people that are, taking research into consideration, not just the research, but obviously like application as well. I think that's like, you don't want to be the coach that just goes based off research for everything because, most of these studies are done on like general population, right? Bodybuilders are kind of the outlier. It's going to be a little bit different. But you don't want to just always take that information. You want to also be the person that's like been in the trenches, knows how to apply these things. Whereas like some of those coaches, they weren't really involved with like the actual research. You call them the bro science, right? Like you know a funny one is eating fish will help you get like leaner, like it'll thin your skin. So when you're lean, they used to think that if you ate fish your skin would get really thin, which is like what's the like logic behind that, right? It's like, where do these things come from? So I think more and more people are starting to see that, and kind of just getting rid of these I'm not getting rid, but hopefully these individuals are, hopping on that train and starting to educate themselves more, so that they can better serve their clients.
Awesome. And I know that you're huge on education. You're always studying, always reading. So if you could briefly just give us some of your favorite maybe resources, favorite people to reference, maybe some books that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Oh, you froze for a second.
Yeah, I froze. Can you hear
Okay.
me okay?
Yes. Did you hear that question?
Am I back? I heard the first part. So
So yeah,
resources.
resources, maybe people you follow, books you love to read.
Mhm. I don't do as much like reading out of like books as I
Okay.
used to. More so I do a lot of mentorships.
Hmm.
I don't want to say a lot of mentorships, but I've done a couple mentorships. So I hired someone the last 4 months we've been working together. He was just teaching me things that I didn't feel super confident in. So I learned a lot more about just how to deal with certain issues with the gut. So like when you have individuals who have like SIBO or leaky gut syndrome, things like that, just how you can help fix those things. I learned how to read blood work. So if I have a client go and get blood work done and we see that certain markers are skewed, I can be like, okay, this is the reason why, and this is, some of the things that we should be doing. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but you can still, recommend things or lead people in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that's been super cool just to learn those kind of things because those are, things that typically a personal trainer is, versed on and knows how to do. So just trying to separate myself and, like I said earlier, just being more educated and just having better resources to better serve clients. I do some reading, but I mean it's not like out of a book. Like nowadays, you go onto Instagram and it's like you can learn a lot from a lot of individuals that have been, in the industry for a long time. Granted, like you have to be careful, what information you're listening to, because there's a lot of people out there who don't put out good information. But you can learn a lot. People putting out like blogs and things like that. Um, so yeah, I mean that's where I learn a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the years, and it's just accumulated. Like if I look back on, even just a year ago, some of my thought processes have changed on certain things. So it's just always evolving and just trying to, stay up to date and things like that.
Cool. So my last question would be for you. What types of subjects do you want to delve into a little bit more? What are the things that you would like to learn more about?
Um, so I've started learning more and more about just like sleep and stress management because those things I feel are two factors that people don't pay as much attention to as they should. People are like in the bodybuilding community, people are really good about working out, going and doing their workouts. They're really good about, eating, but not they don't do a good job with sleep and with stress management. And those two things, I think, if a person can learn how to manage their stress better and get better sleep, they're going to progress so much quicker than the individual who doesn't. So I think those things are really, really interesting. Just learning about the different processes that are occurring in your body, like with an individual who has chronic stress, the things that are occurring within their body, things like that. The psychology of bodybuilding, like I was saying earlier, that's
Mhm.
kind of something interesting. And you know, those are I would say like three topics that I'm super interested in.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know that we have to get you going. So I appreciate you taking the time out to visit with us. And hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.